Now here's the thing, we're all busy people. We've got so much to do in our day-to-day that finding time for a film is often quite hard, especially if the runtime is very, very long. But you know what? There are some films out there that deserve that time investment because they are bloody brilliant. And today, we're looking at horror movies. So come join me as I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 great horror movies over 2 hours long. Number 10, I Saw the Devil. In I Saw the Devil, a serial killer murders a pregnant woman, compelling her fiancé, who happens to be a government agent, to hunt him down. Despite its rather straightforward premise, this Korean masterpiece is anything but formulaic. Now, without giving too much away, the film feels like it's wrapping up within its first hour, giving the viewer little idea of where the story is actually going. And every time you think that you have I Saw the Devil figured out, it goes in a completely different direction, which keeps the viewer utterly engaged despite the film's length. But it's not just the plot that is exceptional. The violence is brutally inventive to the point where you can't tell whether to gasp in horror or in awe. Some of the cinematography is so outstanding that you'll probably say, how the hell did they do that on at least one occasion? However, the film's greatest strength is the charismatic lead, best known for also playing the lead in Oldboy. The way he switches from playing the killer as carefree and charming one moment and a deranged psychopath the next is so effortless, it's like the character is played by two different actors. Number 9, The Conjuring 2. When James Wan released Saw, it launched what would become the biggest horror franchise of the decade. Just to prove that it wasn't a fluke, he created Insidious soon after, which also spawned a lucrative series, and when his 2013 film The Conjuring conjured an entire cinematic universe, it felt like everything he touched turned to gold. And after the original Conjuring grossed nearly 10 times its budget, he agreed to return for a sequel. Now, because The Conjuring 2 is nearly 2.5 hours long, one might presume that the series had become self-indulgent by that point, but it actually didn't. Well, at least not yet. The film's length helped the director take his time to expand the mythos of the nun and the Annabelle doll. It also introduced a new spectre called the Crooked Man, who immediately became a fan favorite. Of course, none of these wicked monsters would have captivated viewers if the director didn't focus on making the Warrens and the Hodgsons feel like real people, which made the scares all the more harrowing. The climax may be a little OTT, but it does work since we got to know these characters so well. Number 8, The Invisible Man. In the 2020 adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel, Cecilia Cass leaves her husband Adrian after she grows tired of his abusive behavior. Even though he seemingly kills himself soon after, she is tormented by an unseen force, making her believe that Adrian has found his way to turn himself invisible. What makes this adaptation of The Invisible Man work so well is it relies on the mantra of show, don't tell, which is rather ironic for a story revolving around a character you can't see. The opening establishes Cecilia and Adrian's tumultuous relationship without explanation or flashbacks. Instead, the viewer is just dropped into her situation the instant the movie starts. It's also very refreshing to see a horror film that doesn't rely on darkness. Anytime a character walks into the shadow in a scary film, we know that a monster or a killer is just going to pop out. But because Adrian can pounce at any time, even in broad daylight, the audience is never ready for a jump scare. Also, you have to commend whoever cut this trailer together, since it is one of the few teasers that didn't give away every single twist the film had to bloody offer. So well done. Number 7, It. Stephen King's novel It centers around an extra-dimensional entity who preys on children while taking the form of a whimsical clown called Pennywise. The book was an enormous hit and was soon adapted into a 2-part miniseries. It's cheesy as all hell nowadays and has TV movie written all over it, but there is no question that this adaptation has a warm place in many people's hearts, mainly because of Tim Curry's exceptional performance as the demonic jester. However, let's face it, the more recent adaptation is superior in every way. Bill Skarsgård goes beyond the Call of Duty to physically and psychologically push his performance as Pennywise as far as possible. Even though the film has fantastic imagery, remarkable CGI, and deserving jump scares, it's the performance of the child actors that makes this work. If they didn't sell the terror of Pennywise, the whole thing would have just fallen apart. Now, it's definitely not the best Stephen King adaptation, but it might be the best at encapsulating the otherworldly terror the author's work has become renowned for. The sequel may have failed to maintain the standard, but at least its predecessor has earned the right to be regarded as a modern horror classic. Number 6, Midsummer. In Ari Aster's Midsummer, Danny heads to an isolated Swedish town in order to help her get over the tragic death of her family. After she discovers that the locals belong to a dangerous pagan cult, she realizes that her life is in jeopardy. Now let's get this out of the way. Midsummer is not for everybody. Not only is it a bum-numbing 148 minutes, a lot of the scenes move at a snail's pace. Theoretically, this film could have been cut down to 90 minutes without impairing on the story in any real way. However, Midsummer's length actually works to its advantage. In all of the most shocking scenes, the audience has had a very good idea what is about to happen. We know what that phone call in the opening scene is about. We know what's going to happen to the elderly couple who climb up to the cliff top. But because these moments take their time, we go on an emotional journey with these characters, and that makes the payoff far more impactful. Midsummer is far from outright scary, but it will definitely keep viewers unnerved for days to come. Number 5. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Even though Hammer Films revitalized Dracula during the 1950s, the film's campy nature caused viewers to associate the Transylvanian Count with corny schlock for entire decades. But when Francis Ford Coppola adapted Bram Stoker's work for the big screen in 1992, he remembered that Dracula is a horror story above all else. However, his adaptation isn't a conventionally scary movie. Due to masterful cinematography, a haunting score, seamless editing, and Gary Bloody Oldman's towering performance as the titular character, it can be creepy, unnerving, and downright terrifying. Even though Bram Stoker's Dracula was highly praised upon its release, it has only grown better with age. When you watch it now with fresh eyes, it's impossible not to be blown away by the Oscar-winning makeup, prosthetics, and practical effects. What's more amazing though is that all of the supernatural shots and transformation scenes were actually achieved without the use of CGI. Trying to figure out how the crew shot the scene where the train seemingly drives on a book without using modern special effects will make your head utterly spin. Number 4. The Bad Seed. In The Bad Seed, Christine Penmark seems to have the perfect life on the surface. She has a wonderful husband, a luscious house, and a beautiful 8-year-old daughter. But after she learns that her daughter's classmate drowned, she worries her child will be left permanently traumatized. But to her surprise, she's completely unfazed by this tragedy. As Christine notices more and more irregularities in her daughter's behavior, she starts to suspect her innocent-looking girl is actually a killer. The Bad Seed garnered a lot of praise during its time, bagging 4 Oscar nominations and becoming one of the most successful films of 1956. Of course, most of this glory comes to Patricia McCormack for her flawless ability to switch from her innocent persona to the darker side in an instant. Despite the fact that The Bad Seed was highly rated, it's been forgotten by most of society, including the most devoted horror fans. Even though modern horror films like The Good Son or Orphan have tried to put their own spin on the evil child motif, no film has done it better than The Bad Seed. Number 3. Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby deals with a woman trying for a baby with her husband after moving into a new home, but when she falls pregnant, she suspects some supernatural force has taken over her unborn child. Now, the original novel was an absolute smash hit, becoming the most successful horror book of the 1960s. It was so popular that it only took a year before it was adapted into a movie. This adaptation had a lot to live up to, since the work was regarded as a perfectly crafted thriller, and because the story deals with Satanism and the Antichrist, many people assumed that the film would just tone down these elements, diluting the story's impact. However, the film managed to surpass the book in terms of story and horror. Although you might wish that Rosemary's Baby was a little shorter, it's not because it's boring, it's because it was so nerve-wracking. Watching Rosemary lose her grip on reality as she's tormented from every angle leaves the viewer feeling like a nervous wreck. What makes the film so tense is not by what is shown, but what is implied. Even though we never witness Rosemary's newborn, her horrified reaction to the child leaves audiences feeling queasy way more than any visual could. Number 2. The Shining. In The Shining, a struggling author called Jack has his family move to an isolated hotel for the winter while he tries to work on his novel. As the isolation and a ghostly presence plagues his mind, he starts to manifest murderous thoughts towards his family. Now, upon its release, The Shining was perceived as a bit of a dud. It received mixed reviews, it was reviled by the author Stephen King, and tanked at the box office, mainly because it had the inconvenience of premiering in the same weekend as The Empire Strikes Back. Come on, lads. And not only was it one of the only films directed by Stanley Kubrick not to receive an Oscar nomination, it garnered a Razzie nom for the Worst Director and Worst Actress. But time has been extremely kind to The Shining since it is now hailed as one of the best horrors in cinematic history. Despite being a slow-building film that borders the 150-minute mark, the constantly uneasy atmosphere stops viewers from getting bored. Blatant scares are rare, and the masterfully crafted direction and phenomenal performances will maintain the audience's undivided attention from beginning to end. And number 1, Quadan. At 183 minutes, Quadan has the honor of being the longest horror film ever made. This 1964 anthology splits into 4 separate tales that have little connection to each other save for their haunting nature. The first story revolves around an unfaithful man being followed and tormented by his ex-wife's hair. In the second story, a man marries a beautiful woman whom he suspects is actually a snow demon. In the third story, a blind musician is hired to entertain the emperor, oblivious that he's performing his music for dead spirits. And the fourth story revolves around an attendant whose life turns upside down after he sees a face in a cup of tea. Because of the 3-hour runtime, viewers may be turned off at the prospect of watching Quadan, but just by looking at it for a few minutes, it is self-evident that the director poured their heart and soul into this project. The luscious hand-painted sets, masterful cinematography, chilling score, and intense performances are so mesmerizing, not a single frame, or line, or sound feels wasted. Quadan may have been forgotten for decades, but has since been rediscovered, turning this quartet of horror into an absolute stone-cold classic. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 great horror movies over 2 hours long. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming and Warhammer battle reports. If you're into that sort of thing, I'd love to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, because you deserve all of the best things in life, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? As always, I have been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.